Hello, good evening, and welcome to everyone for this new week at the Education Centre. Now today, my name is Mutlu. I'm going to fill in for Marcos, and hopefully everything should run smooth. And hello to you too, Alex.
Hi, how you doing, guys?
So we hope everyone's well. I think this is the fourth lesson, if I'm not mistaken. And today we're going to take a look at the perception of reality. All right. Now, before we carry on, maybe you guys haven't got this book yet. It's called Kabbalah for the Student. We're going to read a few excerpts from this book. If you have it, it would be great to have it handy. If not, you could always download it free of charge on the website. Okay? And I do believe we have a lot of people from all over the world today because it's a global lesson. So good day, good evening, wherever you are, depending wherever you are in the world. And so let's take a look at perception of reality as per what the Kabbalists are telling us. Now, as you know, Kabbalah is a very ancient science, so these guys have written about perception of reality somewhat 2,000 years ago when they wrote the book of Zohar, and Baal HaSulam kind of gave us the details of what they were talking about in the last century. And humanity has only been coming to really looking at reality and how it feels and perceives reality only through the times of Newton. So until Newton, obviously, we've come a long way in science and the perception of reality, but the Kabbalists have been talking about for 2,000 years. So today what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to take a look at how humanity treats the perception of reality and how it developed through the centuries in terms of our understanding of perception of reality. And then we'll take a look at what the Kabbalists are saying, and then we'll try to make some kind of a connection and conclude as to how we can advance with Kabbalah and perception of reality. The perception of reality is actually the main topic of Kabbalah. To a lot of people this seems a little strange because we're talking about spirituality, and mainly spirituality is something a bit of airy-fairy where I feel good about myself. Well, in Kabbalah, actually the whole of spirituality is perceiving what really is out there, and that's all that they're really talking about. And so we're going to take a look at that today. Now, let's start with how humanity developed their perception of reality. By the way, before I start, if you do have any questions, dramas, anything you want to get off your chest, there is, as you know, there's a chat box. Shoot your questions through. It would be really, really lovely to have an interactive session, and then we can all have a nice lesson if we all interact and ask questions, and you know, it'll be a bit more jolly session than me just talking. Humanity started looking at the perception of reality really from the times of Newton. And what Newton said basically in those times, they said, well, whether I live or die doesn't matter, reality exists. So I'll do a bit of drawing so we all get our heads right about it. There's a few ways to look at reality, okay? And Newton said, let's put Newton here. Okay. And I'm sure you guys all know Newton. I don't have to make any introductions about the big man. Newton said, look, there is me, and there's the world. Let's call it reality. Okay. And no matter what happens to me, this is the same. It doesn't change. And reality doesn't change either. And he was actually, if you think about it, he's right. This is actually how we perceive reality today. I look at the world, and I see the world just like everybody else sees the world. And my understanding is, well, if I end up dead, the world's going to carry on. Okay? Because people come, people go, but the world carries on. That's our understanding, right? So Newton said, well, it's pretty straightforward. We see what we see. We live how we live. This is the outside world according to how I see with my five senses. And, you know, I don't change. People don't change. The world doesn't change. Just carries on. We're developing in some way or form. And then at the end of the day, we just die. That's how we looked at things. And the main breakthrough that came with perception of reality was with Einstein. Okay, so let's put Einstein here. Einstein. And what Einstein said was this. He said, well, reality, this is reality, and this is me. He said, look, reality is constant, but I change. Now, as you can imagine, this is a pretty big breakthrough, okay, in how we look at reality. Because what Einstein is saying, well, everything is fixed, but if I change, it's like things change, the world changes. Now, Einstein, although he made a breakthrough, let's say, is still a guy that's not really understood. We all understand he was a genius. We all understand he came up with some weird stuff. We all understand he had a weird hairstyle. But at the end of the day, he's still not very well understood. That's why we're still stuck in this Newton kind of understanding of reality, where we look at life, we see life as it is, I see it as it is, and if people die, reality just, the world just carries on, and that person is no longer in the world. We still see things according to how Newton wrote them, even though science has proven to be different. Okay? So this is actually quite mind-boggling, because we as humanity like to think of ourselves as with scientific development we have a better understanding. But when it comes to the perception of reality, we seem to be stuck in some zone where we're completely baffled and we don't understand what's going on at all. So Einstein started this new era saying, okay, look, there is a reality, we understand that, but it will change depending on my observation point. Okay? And that was the main breakthrough last century, in the 19th century. In the beginning of the 1900s, sorry, not the 19th century, 1900s. And after Einstein came, let's call this quantum physics, okay? Quantum physics. Because quantum physics really started with Einstein, but with people like whoever in the 30s, it developed. And these guys said, well, there is reality. Reality, and there's obviously me, and the reality is constant, they're saying, constant, and the change is again in me. So what they've said is pretty much developed where Einstein moved on, and quantum physics says basically everything will change, my reality will change, but the change is because I'm changing. Okay, the world will change because I've changed. Other than that, it's constant. Where does Kabbalah fit in all this? Well, the Kabbalah doesn't fit in any of this, so we can just get rid of that. Kabbalah has a completely different approach, which scientists are also actually coming to that kind of understanding. Now, the Kabbalists are saying there is me, and there is no reality. Okay? They're saying there's just me, and it's all about me. Alright? Maybe we'll like that. It's all about me, me, me. Okay? And that's what the Kabbalists are saying. There is nothing outside. Everything that I feel, I perceive, is actually inside of me. Alright? And this is absolutely something that we can't yet accept in science. At the moment we can't, but we're getting there, hopefully. But the Kabbalists have started talking about this like thousands of years ago. They said, oh, well, everything I see is actually happening inside of me, because we're sensual creatures. We're creatures that feel things. All the information I seemingly get through my five senses seem to give me internal impressions, things that are happening all in me, in my thoughts, in my feelings. And this is your fourth lesson, so you guys probably understand by now that we actually only feel two things in life, good or bad. So every impression I get from the outside is just some kind of a cause to give me a sensation, good, bad, and that's about it. So we're actually pretty basic, primitive creatures, okay? However, from this primitive sensual ability that we have a possibility to really be the pinnacle of creation by grasping the whole of reality from one end to the other. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. And that was pretty much an introduction about the state of humanity and what the Kabbalists are talking about. And that's about it. That is the perception of reality. Now today, we're going to carry on and read a few more excerpts from the books. If you don't have the book, it's not a problem. What page are we reading from? Okay, page 424. We're going to read from the preface to the book of Zohar. Now, if you haven't heard about the Zohar, Zohar is a book that was written more than 2,000 years ago. Okay, it's a very, very special book, and if any of you joined us for the morning lesson, you'll know that generally we study that every day, starting at what, 3:45 to 4:15, something like that. Okay, and before we move on to the text, is there any questions?
No, not yet.
Nothing? Okay, I sometimes tend to talk a little fast. Okay, if I'm a little too fast, just stop me. I'll put the brakes on. And we'll carry on a little bit more slower and take things easy. All right, we're not in a rush. So let's take a look at page 424 from the Kabbalah for the Student. The article is prefaced to the book of Zohar, and we're going to read from item 34. Okay, and if you have any questions, please shoot them through. That does make the lesson a bit more interesting. Let it not surprise you that you find such a conduct in our corporeal perception too. Take our sense of sight, for example. We see a wide world before us, wondrously filled. But in fact, we see all that only in our own interior. In other words, there's a sort of photographic machine in our hindbrain which portrays everything that appears to us and nothing outside of us. For that, he has made for us there in our brain a kind of polished mirror that inverts everything seen there so we will see it outside our brain, right in front of our face. Yet, what we see outside us is not a real thing. Nonetheless, we should be grateful to His providence for having created that polished mirror in our brains, enabling us to see and perceive everything outside of us. This is because by that He has given us the power to perceive everything with clear knowledge and attainment, and measure everything from within and from without. Without it, we would lose most of our perception. The same holds true with the godly will concerning godly perceptions. I'll come to that and explain what he means there. Even though all these changes unfold in the interior of the receiving souls, they nevertheless see it all in the giver himself, since only in this manner are they awarded all the perceptions and all the pleasantness in the thought of creation. You can also deduce that from the above parable, even though we see everything is actually being in front of us, every reasonable person knows for certain that all that we see is only within our own brains. So our souls, although they see all the images in the giver, they still have no doubt that all these are only in their own interior and not at all in the giver. Okay, so that was item 34 from Preface to the Book of Zohar, and this was Baal HaSulam writing everything in the last century for us about the perception of reality. So let's take a look at how we see things, how we perceive things according to our senses. there is any questions, just
one
stop
right
me.
now.
Sure.
That is from Indiana. What do you do with others people experience? If I don't experience something that another person has, does that mean their reality doesn't exist?
That's great. Actually, hold that question. I'm just going to draw a diagram here about our 5 senses, and we'll get to that. Basically, what you're asking is, well, we're all perceiving the same reality. So what we're getting from that reality, is that an individual thing, that everybody gets an individual thing, and how we interact with all the others with respect to all their experiences. So that's a very nice question. So here we go. Let's do a little drawing. Now, I don't draw as good as Marcos, so you'll have to excuse me. What Baal HaSulam is basically saying here is this. We have 5 senses. Okay, oops, can you see that? No. Oh, there we go. We have 5 senses, which is sight, hearing, okay, oops, taste, smell, and touch. Okay? Basically, that's what we have. And Baal HaSulam is saying, look, these senses give us some kind of an image which is called this world. Excuse me. And in this world, what we see is there's the sun, there's the mountains, there's the rivers, and there's the, well, skyscrapers, and there's people, there's animals. What else is there? Trees, the vegetative, okay? And this is basically our picture of the world. So Baal HaSulam says, we see the still, vegetative, animate, and the human speaking level through our 5 senses. However, how we actually, through what influence we see that, he says, is a question mark. So, although I do have 5 senses, what gives me this image inside me is not clear. So he's saying there is nothing here on the outside, as I can define it, except some influence which through 5 senses I see this world. Alright, and this is this world. And he says, I perceive all that inside me. Basically, that's what the Kabbalists are saying in the book of Zohar. And Baal HaSulam has kindly put this into layman terms for us. And I love the way he says, even the most logical person can understand that this is how it is, even though we look at the world and it takes a few geniuses to come up with this concept. Okay, so if we just think about this concept for a little bit, we might be able to come up with a conclusion, and at the end of the lesson, hopefully, we'll have some kind of an approach as to what I see outside, which is actually in me. Baal HaSulam is saying to us, the whole world is actually all my qualities, all my interior sensations, my personality, my character, how I evaluate things, how I make calculations, how I decide, everything, what I like, what I don't like, how I receive, how I give, everything that's in me, the whole thing, everything that's going on inside of me, he's saying, is actually like a film projector put in front of me so I can make a self-evaluation. And this is very important when we're studying Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is actually discovering human nature and what created us, and, well, Creator we call him, and the Creator's nature, so we can find some kind of balance between us, how he relates to me and how I should be relating back to him in this well, world, which we call world of relationships. Okay, if we look at the world, actually the whole world is based on relationships. We have relationships with everyone in the world, or the people around us, or in our city, or in our country, or whatever. And somehow we've built a life, a country, a world as humanity, and we've done that all through our relationships. So here, what we're trying to do in Kabbalah is to set this relationship right. My nature has to somehow match the nature of the Creator. And if it doesn't match, we seem to go through problems in life, and those problems should bring us to a balance. Now, coming back, well, the problems should bring us to seek balance. That's what I meant. Now, coming back to Dennis from Indiana, what do we do with other people's experiences? If I don't experience something that another person has, does that mean their reality doesn't exist? Reality exists for all of us, but reality exists for all of us through our own personality. We see the world according to a concept called the desire to receive. Have you guys done the desire to receive yet by now? You have? Alex?
Well, I
yes?
do something.
No? Okay. Marcos probably talked about this. I'm sure he has. The whole of reality, which is us, okay? If we're talking about the whole of reality, it means how I see everything. Okay, and every impression I get from the world, which I'm living inside of me, is called reality. It's called my world. It's called this universe, this world. Okay? And all of us have the same 5 senses. And we are all made from a desire to receive. Okay? I'm sure they've talked about this in the first lessons of Kabbalah. We were created as a vessel of reception. Okay? Because, there we go. And all our 5 senses, let's put the 5 senses here. All our 5 senses give us an impression of this world, how my life is. Okay, this world, which is the same as my world or life. Okay? Now, because we all have the same 5 senses, we all perceive the same world. Alright? We all perceive the sun, the moon, the stars. This is why I drew the whole picture of reality here. We're all actually perceiving this thing called this world, but the impression I'm getting is different. How I feel things are different, because some people like chocolate, some people don't like chocolate. For some people, this is a table. For a designer, it's just a piece of wood. For a guy, I don't know, who's really artistic or something, this is something horrific, okay? Because he thinks of a table like something that should be, I don't know, designed beautifully or made. So the impressions we get are different, but what we see is the same thing. We all see that there's a black table here, there's a camera there, there's a screen there, there's a book here. We all understand that there are general things which we can all define and talk about because we see them as they are. Okay? But other people's experience from this world is different. Now, there's 2 ways to look at what you just said. One is if we look at laws of nature. Okay? Laws of nature are predetermined things. Okay? So what influences me? Laws of nature. This is also what I wanted to say just a few minutes ago, how we need to come to some kind of a balance, because if you look at the 21st century, humanity is just completely out of sync with what's going on. Everybody's in depression, ecology, economy, education, our social life, if we just look at everything, is just collapsing, simply because we just don't understand how to put ourselves in balance with the laws of nature. Now, in life, we have scientists that discover the laws of nature. All right? And they say, look, according to our discovery, this is how it is. And for example, let's take an example from this world, a doctor. All right? So doctors go and study our anatomy, which is our animate body, and they say, oh my God, we've got these organs, they're all connected to each other somehow with these, I don't know, blood vessels and tubes and muscles and what have you not. And in this body, there is a certain mechanism that works in a certain way. Okay? And these are the laws of nature of my body. Now, what do? Because this guy has gone and studied half of his life to know and understand what my body is like, so if I have a drama with it, he can fix it. I go to the guy and say, I hear you're a good doctor, I'm a little sick, can you please help me out? What we've done is used his experience to benefit ourselves. Okay? So that's one way of using other people's experiences. The way he looks at medicine, okay, or the science of anatomy or whatever, and the way you look at it, though, are completely different things. He understands how the system works. I'm an accountant. I understand how something else works. Okay? However, when all of us come together in society, we are all using each other's experiences to make some kind of a connection with each other. Okay? And the impressions we get are obviously different. Because if we all had the same impressions, then we'd all be like robots. There wouldn't be any richness in the world. We'd just be very monotone. It'll be like black and white. Okay? We're like this and that be it. So we use each other's experiences because from the influence of what's outside of us, which is generally known in Kabbalah as the Creator, or we can call it light, or you can call it the laws of nature, if you like. It's all the same thing, okay? So the impressions we get are different, but we see the same reality. And all those different impressions that 7 billion people get are all different because we are all different. But when all of that comes together, it makes one complete, perfect world. So you're probably thinking, but the world is not perfect. That's exactly right. And that's how we need to actually change our perception of reality in order to bring us to some kind of an equilibrium with this force here. All right? Is there any other question? I hope I answered that right. I hope I satisfied your question there. If not, let me know. I'll try to dig into it a bit more.
Tanya from Holland, is this reality of myself causing conflict between people because we have all different realities?
We could say that the reason that we have conflicts with each other is because all of us are a desire to receive. Okay, our nature is a desire to receive, and that's how we see world, how we see everything, really. Because I'm always trying to make a calculation. Okay, if you look at humanity, what do we? At the end of the day, we all want something every day, right? I want to fulfill myself. Our nature is to get satisfaction, to get happiness, to get fulfillment, and how we're programmed to do that is by receiving. Okay, so the more I receive, I think I'm going to be more happy. We've just discovered that that is actually not the case. Okay, the more I receive, actually the more depressed I get. That's why you get more rich people in depression, they're more in alcohol and drug abuse. Seemingly you'd wonder why. If you have everything, how can you be in that state? Well, if I get what I want, okay, the desire and the pleasure, what happens? Did you guys learn that? It cancels each other. Alright? If I want a new car, I get a new car after a few weeks or a few days even, I'm already over it. There's no more pleasure. Okay? And that leaves me twice as empty. Before, at least I had a desire, I had an aspiration, I had something to work for with pleasure, because seemingly what I wanted to get in the future was already in my grasp, and that's already a glimpse of happiness, which is enough to motivate a person to move and do something. The reason we're all in conflict is we all want to receive something, we all want to get pleasure, but it generally ends up being at the expense of others, which is called egoism. okay? Which is not our fault. We were created this way. And there's no need to really bang our head on the wall because we're egoists and we're all trying to get something from somebody else in order to fulfill ourselves, and this is causing wars, chaos, personal conflicts, and even destroying the planet ecologically. First of all, that's not our fault. That's how we were created. However, from that question, what we should come to see is we are in a conflict in every phase of our lives, in our families, in our workplaces, in society, with countries. We're constantly in conflict, and also with nature as well. We're constantly destroying nature. It's a nice question because it's somewhat revealing the awareness that there's some kind of a conflict here, which we can now say is because of our nature, our desire to receive on behalf of others, at the expense of others. And that, when we approach life in that way, wanting to get everything, conflict happens. That's why the most important thing in Kabbalah is actually getting this perception of reality right. Because if I understand that I'm a desire to receive, and if I am looking at the whole world in order to get everything, in order to fulfill myself, and then still that causes me no further happiness, then I have to start thinking about, well, what do I need to change? What do I need to do? And that's the big question mark that the 21st century is really holding us. And this is probably why you're looking at Kabbalah right now. You're thinking, well, why am I not happy? What's the problem here? Why am I not fulfilled in life? Because if you're not fulfilled, you start searching. If everything was honky-dory in your life, you'd probably not look for anything, because you say, well, I'm satisfied, I'm happy, why do I need to look for anything? But if there is something missing in your life, then you start searching. And that's why you probably came to Kabbalah, because you're wondering what's going on with your life. So this is what's going on, all right? We're trying to fulfill ourselves, and it's not really working. And because we're trying to do it on the account of others, we're in conflict with all levels of life. And if we get this perception of reality right, find a balance by discovering how our nature is, then we can try to find a solution. And there is a solution, thank goodness. And we are going to get into that in the following lessons. So the important thing to realize here is, what Baal HaSulam is saying here is that everything I see in the world is a reflection of me, my personality. What's out there is the world showing me who I really am, what I really am. Now, if you take that approach and think about it for a moment, you might look at life and think, oh my God, the world is really in a horrific state. I must be a horrible person. The essence of that is kind of somewhat true, but for a person to really see that he's in that state is a whole different ballgame. Our egoism will also not let us believe that, because he'll feel really, really bad. So what we're going to first try to do with this course here, with this part of the course anyway, is just try to get our heads around about how we're looking at life. Is there any other questions there?
Question from New York.
Sure.
If reality is only what I project for calculation of self-analysis, what is the thing that passes through my five senses that my hindbrain is inverting for personal reference?
Impressions. Okay, everything we get in life is actually an impression. The impressions build my reality. And those impressions are actually always made of two things. In reality, we see two opposite forms all the time. Black, white, dark, night, sweet, bitter, beautiful, ugly. Everything in life comes from two complete opposite spectrums. And within that two opposite realms, I get impressions. And from those impressions, from birth until we grow up, all I'm actually getting is impressions. I'm just constantly building as I grow up with life, as I grow up in my experiences from just being a newborn baby until the day I die. all I actually do is just accumulate impressions which give me the image of who I am and what I am. And that is actually a breakthrough in our approach to life, if we approach it that way, if we can. Generally, humanity will not. Generally, humanity will blame others. People on the street will say, oh, that person's like that, and that person's like that, and he's like this, and he's like that, and that's his fault, and that's her fault. Kabbalists are saying, well, it's nobody's fault, first of all, because there's nobody really to talk about except me, because that's how I see things. So our whole life is between two extreme impressions, two extreme, limits of minus and positive to get impressions in order to build what we call actually a perception of reality. And as we develop, all these impressions should bring us to what I just mentioned a minute ago, which is that question mark about, well, why? Okay? And that actually brings a person to search, and then we can take a look at approaching reality through Kabbalistic methods. All right? Now, if we wanted to carry on, is there anything else?
No, that's it for now.
That's it for now. Okay. So, until now, let's do a little summary. Okay, we see the world as me, and there's people outside of me, there's a world outside of me, and that's the standard vision of the world. We think there is me and other people and the rest of the world, and my life is some kind of a contact and interaction with those people. That's how the world thinks the world is. And if I die, people carry on, life goes on, what can you do? And, you know, all the best for the rest that remain here. That's the general outlook. And in Kabbalah, we're learning something completely different, saying that everything I see is actually my internality, my impressions, my personality, my thoughts and my desires. So what do you think will happen if my body dies? Will anything happen? That's a question for you guys. If you have anything to share with us, please let's do it a bit more interactive. And in the meantime, I'd just like to touch on one basic thing, which is normally not in this lesson, but it's worthwhile going through. And I'll just draw it like this. Let's call this actually human, not living. Human. Okay? Now here there's an important thing. The reason I wanted to draw this, actually let's put a person here as well. Okay? And that's the guy. Now our world consists of these things. Our world, okay? Consists of these things, right? There's the still level, the vegetative, the animate, and the speaking, the human, or sometimes we call it the speaking level. Okay? And all this, let's make this a happy chap because he's studying Kabbalah. Okay. And all this, the whole of this world, as I see it, I'm living inside of me. That's what the Kabbalists are saying. So here we need to, with respect to just the question I asked a minute ago, we have to also determine inside of us what these levels really are. Okay? Now, at the end of the day, we're just talking about a desire. And that beautiful question just now that came through, what am I actually living, is I'm living all my impressions. And all my impressions are actually this kli, or this vessel that I drew a minute ago. Okay? I'm receiving everything as a person, the whole of reality, in this thing called a vessel. A vessel is also another name for, maybe you guys already heard about it, it's called a soul. Alright? Soul. So where does this fit in? Alright? Where does that fit in with all the calculations of our corporeal bodily life? Now, if we're looking at life and we see all these levels in life, the still, vegetative, animate, and speaking, and if we're saying that everything is in me, there must be some kind of a reconciliation, mustn't there? Right? So how can all that be inside of me? If I perceive everything through wanting, through a desire to receive, everything that I see in the world takes the form of something I want to get. All right? Now, although I drew the person here, and although this guy is meat and flesh, the real human, the speaking we're talking about is something you probably heard about. It's called a dot in the heart. Okay? What we actually want to do is take the 5 senses of this guy here, use it in order to develop this guy here, okay, which is called a dot in the heart, which is the gene for our soul, okay? And that actually belongs to the human level. All right, so maybe I should have drawn it here. Our body belongs to the animate level. All right? And in our body we also have things that belong to the vegetable level, like our hair, our nails, okay? Hair, nails. Why? They also grow like vegetables or flowers, and we cut them, don't we? Do you know why we don't feel pain when we cut our nails and our hair? Because the vegetative level is lower than my body. So if I'm living at the animate level in my body, anything that's lower here, the hair, the nails, I cut them off, I don't feel anything. And the still level, I have the bones in my body. Okay? Now when you break your bone, the bone doesn't feel the pain. The nerves do. And the nerves all relate to the animate body here. Alright? Just in case somebody might come up with a question, if I break a bone, it hurts. It hurts because your nerves send signals that there's something wrong with your body. So it's not your bone, it's your animate level that hurts. Alright? So in our body we also have all those things that belong to the reality, to the outside world. And also what we're trying to do now, from this perception of reality, discover our nature, okay, which is a desire to receive for itself, and convert that into something that's going to balance itself with what the Kabbalists are saying, a force that is outside of us. And until we can reconcile the force that's outside of me and my nature, we're always going to have problems. And that is the whole of the study of Kabbalah in a nutshell. All right? Questions?
Christina from Bulgaria, she wants to add, my body dies, but isn't just a shell. Okay? My soul will continue to live. My soul will continue life and collect experience as we all connected. That's right.
That's quite true. However, it's quite true if we attain a soul. Okay? Basically what we're told in life is, well, if you grew up in a religious environment or something of that nature, they'll say, oh, you've got a soul, and when you end up dead, you go into La La Land and everything is very honky-dory if you were a nice person. And if you weren't such a nice person, things are not going to be so honky-dory. Kabbalah obviously has a completely different approach to that. When we're talking about the perception of reality, I'm taking a look at from the perception of reality all the time simply because this lesson is based on that. According to the perception of reality, we have to develop a soul, which is a sensory organ, from something that is an inclination inside of us, which is called a dot in the heart, or a point in the heart, or the first gene of the soul, all right, the beginning point of the soul. And our whole process here is actually to develop that sensory organ, and once it develops, it will have 5 sensory organs, just like our body does, okay? Because our body is like a reflection of a structure, okay? Just like how our body perceives this reality, our soul is like a reflection of that perceives a hidden part of reality. And that's what we actually have to start building with work here. And that's the whole work in Kabbalah, how I can build a soul in order to perceive that force which is outside of me. So actually having a soul means I see the Creator, I see the light, I see the whole of reality, and that's what it means. I don't want to use the word God here because it takes us to all kind of definitions, and there's 3,800 religions out there with 3,800 definitions, and I just don't want to step into that zone. So the dot in the heart is the beginning point for us to develop a soul in order to perceive everything that we don't perceive. And the Kabbalists are saying, well, just compare a speck of dust to the whole of the universe, and you're actually that speck of dust and you're missing out on all the rest. So hopefully developing the soul will allow us to live in a different reality while still feeling existing, just like we feel like we exist in this world. Okay? So actually our perception of reality is, like Bala Islam writes here, it's a real wonder, because it's like a copy of a spiritual concept that's obviously far more greater, but it gives us a starting point, a base where we can start making a move to develop ourselves for a higher level of perception and existence. Right. Hope all that was okay, nice and easy, shouldn't be any dramas at all. And that's how we feel reality with our 5 senses, and hopefully we'll develop a soul. The soul will also have its own 5 senses and its own feeling of existence in a reality which we don't feel at the moment. All right. Any questions there?
Maybe just one more.
When there's not a lot of questions, I worry. I worry because I either did a bad job in explaining, or I didn't quite get that, or I didn't really connect with you guys. Okay, so if there's not a lot of questions, there's a bit of a worry. If there is something not clear, if there's something not understood, just pass it on as well. Things don't always have to be a question, because we're like running this thing interactive. If there's something not clear, if I haven't done a good job at explaining something specific, just let me know so I can, clear that out as well.
That is from Indiana, but isn't the key in receiving is also in bestowing on another person or to the Creator?
The whole of reality, it's nice that you say that. Let's actually take a look at that again. The whole of reality, according to how Kabbalists tell us, is this. There's a guy outside of us called the Creator, and his attribute is bestowal only. Okay? And he already created us. Did you guys do the phase 1, 2, and 3? Purpose of creation, us, and where we're supposed to...
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So Marcus probably taught you guys. He said, look, the Creator is all bestowal, and he already created us in perfection. Okay, we're already perfect in his eyes. However, we don't feel perfect because we live in this world. Okay? And in this world, we are opposite in our perception of reality. Okay? He's all bestowal, I'm all reception. Okay? So our forms are different, completely opposite. He's all in love and bestowal, I'm all egoist. Okay? However, when he created us, for him everything was perfect. Okay? He created something perfect. We just don't feel as living in perfection. Now, let's just think about this. It's a bit deep, but it's a really nice topic. If he created everything in bestowal, the whole world must be in bestowal. Okay? Must be. There's no other way it can exist if it wasn't. Okay? However, I feel it all opposite. But let's just think about how we've built our world throughout the centuries. All of humanity has set up systems actually to bestow to one another. A taxi driver takes me wherever I want to go. A doctor, he cures me whenever I'm sick. A person who manufactures cars gives me the opportunity to buy a car and travel wherever I like. I don't know, what a tailor does my clothes for me, all right, or a textile company. I don't know, a personal trainer trains me at the gym so I get fit and healthy, okay? If we look at the whole world, everything is actually working in such a way that we are all serving each other. Okay, I go to the bank and I withdraw money. We're all serving each other in this system. However, the way we serve each other is not because we want to serve each other, but because we want to benefit from each other for ourselves. So the whole system is actually working in bestowal, in mutual connection, but in a completely opposite way. I'm doing things in order to benefit myself, and so is everybody else. And so we have a world that's in bestowal completely egoistically. And that's our reality. From that reality, we will come to, this is the first, this is the second, okay? And from this reality, what we will come to is once again perfection. However, by going through this thing called understanding. Okay? And that's the beautiful thing. Okay? So here everything is perfect, here everything is opposite, it's a big minus, but it's not a disadvantage. Actually, it's a beautiful thing because I get to see the two edges of everything in order for me to build out of this world something called perfection. All right? So even though the world is working in that way, in bestowal, we're using it in an opposite form. So that's why the Kabbalists are saying, if you want to perceive the whole of, I don't know, spirituality or that love and bestowal, you just have to do one very simple thing. Change the way you use your nature. That's why spirituality is just so easy. Okay, it's very easy to do. It's very easy to study. And I don't know. It's just, I mean, one of the easiest things you can do is to study spirituality in order to change your nature, in order to discover the whole of reality. So what could be more beneficial to that? And that, with that, you actually begin to live in a new sense, in a new, I don't know, call it in a new way of existence. Call it a new body that doesn't die, okay, which is just soul, which lives forever and ever, completely in this feeling of perfection, in this feeling of love. Imagine for yourself a life where you're constantly in this amazingly loving relationship with everyone, all right? So we all, imagine a perfect world for ourselves. So that's what spirituality is, and it really is a piece of cake. Before we continue,
yeah, Kevin from UK. So how do we activate the point in the heart? Do I have to give my nice thoughts, feeling, and give thanks to the Creator?
Well, we don't know who the Creator is yet, okay? But you're right, this is a very good question. How am I going to develop that point in the heart? Because if I don't, things are just going to get horrible. Still carrying on if I still live in this manner, all right? So I have a dot in the heart. I have to develop that, turn this thing into something called a soul, okay, which instead of receiving is bestowing, okay? Or sometimes we say, I'm receiving in order to bestow. But the whole idea is, it's never for me, it's always to bestow. And in that, I feel infinite, because there's no end to giving. Okay? If I'm constantly receiving and feeling fulfilled, then I'm left with twice as emptiness, because the desire cancels the pleasure. I'm left thinking about, again, where I can get pleasure from. Okay? So in giving, in bestowal, there's something called infinity, endlessness. How am I going to work on that in order to feel this infinity? Well, first of all, I'd like to say you took the first step, started studying Kabbalah, because that's how we can start to actually understand how we're going to work on this. In order to develop a soul, I need a few things in this world. First of all, like with all things in life, I need to learn. Okay? I need to learn myself. I need to learn who I really am, and to understand what my nature really is, and what kind of a personality this thing is, so that I can come to some kind of, at least, imagination about how I want to change it. Our whole problem is we don't know what we are. We don't know who we are. We just think, this is me, how I live my life, and there's a bunch of people out there who live their lives, and if things don't go as I like, I just go somewhere else and try to change my life. Well, it doesn't change. Nothing can change. So for us to change, first of all, we need to get this new sensory organ called the dot in the heart. Now, this is an inclination. Inclination. A lot of people say, well, what is the dot in the heart? I mean, what is it? I don't feel like I've got a dot in the heart. Well, if you have an inclination to search for something beyond your corporeal life, then that's already an impression, isn't it? And the whole of spirituality is an impression. Don't imagine for yourself some kind of a la-la land, okay? That's only in storybooks. We just go through life like a movie. And the best we can do from this is to gather impressions that are spiritual, so they can last. Okay, so they can last beyond the body, beyond our level of existence, so we can go one level higher in existence. So this inclination that makes me search, okay, makes me search, why am I living? Why am I living? And you'll see this question popping up a lot in our generation, because people simply can't get fulfilled, especially in the West. In the Western world, we seemingly have everything, but we seem to be the most unhappiest people on the planet. How can that be? Because all our efforts to fulfill ourselves with happiness has come to a dead end. We've finally discovered that our nature just can't carry on like this. It's just not worth it anymore. There's nothing for me to get pleasure from, and if my nature is a desire to receive pleasure, I've got nothing to talk about. It's, better off dying. That's why a lot of people commit suicide or use drugs and so on. So I take this inclination, this question really, is why am I living? And I work on it. Now, for me to work on that, I need a good environment. And environment means that I can influence this. Okay, that's what an environment is in Kabbalah. How can I influence my inclination to discover spirituality? And that environment is obviously going to be the study, which is our books and, all the resources that we study, books and resources we have. We need a teacher who's obviously gone through the same dilemma, okay? And hopefully a group of friends who are also seeking the same things in life, like we are. Because if we're seeking the purpose of life, I obviously don't want to hang out with a bunch of football hooligans, do I? If I hang out with a bunch of football hooligans, I'll just get myself into trouble. So the Kabbalists are saying, look guys, if you want to advance in spirituality, just like in this world, all right, if you want to be a good doctor, you hang out with good doctors, academics, researchers. If you want to be a good scientist, You hang out with all the scientists and you try to get as much as you can from them. If you want to be a good football player, you hang out with the best football players in your environment so you can improve yourself. They're saying this thing is not much different. Okay? The only difference is we're aspiring for something beyond this level of existence. But the principles are the same. Because humanity needs motivation to move. Okay, and there's only one way you can get motivation. That's through the environment. And Kabbalists are saying, guys, if you want to advance in spirituality and develop a soul, you've got to be in an environment with a bunch of people who are doing the same thing, basically, and who are studying this methodology that you've chosen to study as well, so you can understand it better, so you can work practically better, and you can keep improving yourself until you come to that breakthrough. That's how we develop our soul. That's a starting point, and your starting point here is also a nice one. Why? Because you're here with a bunch of people who are studying with you. We have everyday morning lessons. We've got the education courses. We've got books, articles, everything you need to study, to learn, and they're all free. Okay? We don't charge for spirituality, okay, because spirituality is something that's shared with other people. Okay? It's not a business. It's something that needs to be given with love, with consideration, and with the attribute of bestowal, if that's what I'm trying to attain. Okay, so as B'nai Baruch, we're trying to come to an attribute of bestowal. And bestowal is done when you give things from the heart free.
One more quick question, possible?
Sure. Okay.
Okay, question from US. If the creator is all bestowal and the creature is all reception, then these are opposites, not alike. How does Kabbalah understand the Torah teaching? How does Kabbalists, understand the Torah teaching? The humans are in the image and likeness of the creator. Kabbalist.
Okay, if the creator is all in bestowal and the creature is all reception, then these are opposites, not alike. Absolutely, yes.
How does
Kabbalah understand the Torah teaching? The humans are in the image of likeness of the creator. Well, that's a nice question, but it's what I just mentioned here. Okay, what did we say? We said the human level, right? Human level means the degree where I have a soul. Okay? Soul means I perceive the creator. So the Kabbalists who actually wrote the Torah, well, Moses, right? He was actually talking and describing to us what a real human was. Adam, for example, okay? Adam was the first man, we always say. Adam wasn't the first guy walking on two legs on the planet. Adam was the first human because he was the first guy who developed a soul and saw the Creator. And he said to himself, oh my God, there's this world and there's that world. That's the first man. Because people on two legs have been roaming the planet for hundreds of thousands of years. And Adam's only been around for what? Just over 5,700 years. Why is he the first man in spiritual books? Because spirituality is talking about the degree of human, the degree of a man, which is a spiritual concept. It has nothing to do with our bodies. So when the Kabbalist is reading the Torah and is talking about Egypt and Babylon and all these things that Abraham and these guys went through around in the desert, he's not talking about geography. He's not talking about the history books. He's genuinely talking about what these people were going internally in order to discover spirituality. This is why they always had dramas. Because imagine this, you trying to discover something you've got no grasp of. Only thing you've got to work on is a gut feeling. That's not in the heart. It's just a gut feeling. It's just a hunch that's how it needs to be. It's just a hunch. So to discover the whole of reality, the creator, the light, infinity, with a hunch, you can imagine it's pretty straining on a person. But it's a fun strain. It's a nice game. And if you've got good friends around you to play that game, it can be really, really adventurous. So how do Kabbalists read the Torah? They read it straight. exactly about how a person's soul is developing the attribute of bestowal. Bestowal means my intention. Okay? We're always going to be a desire to receive. That's not our fault. We didn't create ourselves. The Creator created me as a desire to receive. Okay? Question, how am I going to use that? Am I going to use it to fulfill myself? Or am I going to use it to fulfill others? That's called the intention. And that's actually the flip we have to do in order to discover spirituality. That's why the whole world works in bestowal, as I just mentioned about 10 minutes ago. Everything in the world works in bestowal, in harmony. The reason we don't feel the harmony is because we're using everything for ourselves instead of for others. If everybody, just think about it, if everyone was working for others, right, free of charge, let's say, none of us would be ever hungry, none of us would ever be homeless, none of us would be, I don't know, lacking anything. We wouldn't lack anything because there's everything enough for everyone 10 times fold on this planet. If there was 50 billion people living on the planet right now, there'd be enough to supply food. But why is there a food shortage? Because we don't like to share. Alright? So the whole of spirituality is a flip of how I relate to this world. Hope that answers your question. Now I can't see the clock anywhere, so you have to tell me when we need to finish.
Yeah, we run out of time.
We're running out of time? Alright, okay.
Just quick announcements. And that's it.
Alright, so just let me touch on one point. Okay, so I did actually talk about the point in the heart and how we develop it. Okay, just before we finish, I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I actually haven't given a lesson in the English Education Center for quite some time now. I used to teach here, but I hope the lesson was good for you. It's certainly been a pleasure coming back. And our announcements, Alex.
Yeah. So your next lesson, guys, will be on Sunday, January 20th. It will continue your discussion about the perception of reality. Please take any unanswered questions to the student Q&A forum, where instructors and moderators are there to provide you with the answers. Just click on the forum tab above the chat window. Only this weekend, many of the Education Center instructors will be participating in a major Bnei Baruch event in Israel. Because of this, it will take longer than usual to get your forum's questions answered. Please be patient, and everybody will work hard on Monday to catch up as quickly as possible. If you have any comments, questions, or problems of any type, please send an email to here. It says ec@kabbalah.info. There's volunteers who will help you out. Make sure that your questions get routed to someone who can help. And links, here we go, Education Center website and bookstore. So hopefully we all set.
Hopefully we're all set. Okay. Yeah, we are going on a little event this weekend, and a lot of friends from all over the world have come here. So you'll just need to bear with us until Monday, and they'll get back to you. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Have a great evening. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.